Hey Husker fans, Sam McKewon with the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra. It's back. The three keys to Nebraska football season. Well, this will be just the first game. Minnesota. Hello everyone. It is the beginning of the Matt Rhule era at Nebraska. New coach, new vibe, new level of discipline. Same old Minnesota. The Gophers have not changed, and they're going to be the same team that they've been all along, and Nebraska's going to have the same challenges going up to Minneapolis that they have had for some time. Remember, Nebraska has not won in what is now called Huntington Bank Stadium since 2015. So they lost there in 17, 19, and 21. And in each game, Nebraska got off to hideous starts. So they're going to have to get off to a good start if they want to have any chance of winning in Minnesota. I think they are not going to be able to start slow. They're going to have to come out of the gates well. And of course, it's a challenge in this very first game of just getting up to speed with the physicality that Minnesota brings to the table and the kind of players that they have. Obviously, Minnesota's going to have to deal with Nebraska's defense. A little bit of a mystery. A little bit of a mystery on offense, but I think we all have a pretty good idea of what Nebraska's going to try to do. So it's a fun game. It's not an easy game to start out. You'd love to see Nebraska start with a far easier opponent, maybe a Louisiana Tech or a Northern Illinois, something that kind of hits the ground running and takes off on the runway, but Nebraska's got to be ready to roll right away. So we go to the first key, which is fast and loose. Nebraska needs to go into this game, what do you want to call it? Fast and loose. They have to be ready to roll. They can't be nervous. They can't try to put the weight of the world on their shoulders. They have to go in and be ready to make plays, running 100 miles an hour on defense and being ready to play fast on offense. And Jeff Sims, quarterback Jeff Sims, has to be ready to roll. He can't be tight. He can't try too hard to fit passes into spaces where they don't belong. He needs to be comfortable enough to tuck and run, get down the field, try to make plays going down the field. Drop back pass, not there, run it. Drop back pass, not there, run it. I think they want Sims to be a scrambler. They're probably going to have some designed run plays for him too, but Nebraska just has to come out and they've got to be able to hit. And you know, defensively in recent years, I do feel like Nebraska has struggled a little bit in that very first game. They've just been a little bit tight. They've been a little slow. I do think that Nebraska's agility has improved on the defensive side of the ball. I do think they're laterally fairly quick too, but they've just got to come out and play football. And I think Matt Rhule has been spending a lot of time, as they've talked about 6,000 reps, getting them to the point where when they go out there, they're not hesitating, they're trusting their training, and they're playing fast. I think on defense, that is especially important. Key number 2, pound, pop. What does that mean? Okay, well, here's what it means. Nebraska's got to be able to run the football between the tackles, usually with their running backs. Sometimes maybe using a fullback, sometimes maybe using a tight end to block. You've got to find ways to go boom, 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 boom. You've got to run the ball at Minnesota. You've got to find a way to run the football with some consistency. I'm not saying you're going to get 17 yards per carry or even 9 yards per carry, but let's just take 4.5, 5. Pound it, pound it, pound it, pound it. And then when you feel like you've brought that defense up a little bit, they got to bring a safety into the box to slow down that run. You pop that pass. To a tight end, Thomas Fidone or Nate Borkircher. You pop that pass over the top to maybe a Jalen Lloyd or an Alex Bullock, or you have that moment where you execute a nicely faked running back screen. You fake it. The guy goes out for a quick throw like a Ramir Johnson. You get him in open space, and maybe he hits one for 35 yards. That's an important play too. You've got to find a way to slow down Minnesota's pass rush, and I think Minnesota likes to rush the passer. So they're going to try to get after Nebraska. You've got to find a way to slow them down, and you've also got to find a way to get some of your receivers open. Sometimes that means you have to run the football in order to set that up. Minnesota's going to try to do the same thing, right? This is what Minnesota does. They're going to get out of the shotgun. Ethan Kelly-Manis is their quarterback. Sean Tyler, a Western Michigan transfer, is their running back. They're going to ride those gives, right? Outside zone, mid zone, inside zone, outside zone, and then they're going to pull it. And they're going to throw it. Usually slants. They like those kind of throws. Sometimes they'll throw that little out route too if the guy is off. And then eventually Minnesota wants to go over the top. They love those big posts. They're going to try to get there. They're going to try to get a safety down. They're going to try to get single coverage in their slots, and they're going to go over the top. They're going to try to get that tight end isolated against a linebacker, maybe a shorter linebacker like a John Bullock or a Luke Reimer. They're going to try to go over the top. They're going to try to balloon it to Brevin Spanford, who's 6'7" and 270 pounds. So both teams are going to try to do the same thing. Which team's going to do a better job of that? And of course, the last key, breaks of the game. Now, sometimes you got to make your own breaks, right? You've got to find a way to play with the leading edge, get out in front of this game, try to make something happen, try to be a little bit aggressive, try to get something to go your way, whether it's a blocked punt or it's a strip sack or something like that. Nebraska's got to play aggressive, but they also need a few things to go right. And I know that Nebraska's trying to avoid having to rely on good luck to win football games. However, let me counter with this. They need a little bit. They need something to go right, especially in that first quarter. It could be a lot of different things. It could be a ball going through the hands of a Minnesota receiver, whoop, right into Malcolm Hartzog's hands. It could be a muffed punt on Minnesota's end. It could be a botched, third down that doesn't work and pins Minnesota in its end. They don't need Minnesota to make a mistake. I think Nebraska can win this game without Minnesota playing sloppy, but it would help. And Minnesota doesn't often do that. Nebraska's got to make its own breaks, but it won't hurt if Minnesota, which is young in some areas, has a self-inflicted error or two. And it's possible that it could happen. It's going to be a 7 o'clock game on Fox. It's going to be hot. I don't think it's going to be 90 degrees. That could be volleyball day hot, but it's going to be warm, I think, up in Minneapolis. You just never know. Maybe Minnesota comes in tight. Maybe Nebraska comes in loose. I think it's going to be a good football game. I think logic tells you that you got to pick Minnesota right here because A, they're a 7-point favorite. B, they've beaten Nebraska, I think, several times in a row, 4 times in a row. C, it's their home game, and they're going to have most of the fans there, and everybody's going to be pretty juiced up. It's a tough spot for Nebraska, but let me say this. I think it's going to go into the fourth quarter, and I do think there's going to be an opportunity for the Huskers to win this game with a drive sometime in the fourth quarter. I don't know what the score is going to be. I suspect it'll be kind of low scoring, but Nebraska will have a chance at winning this game, and that's a start to the Matt Rule. I think that second game against Colorado has a lot more urgency attached to it, especially mentally. I think the physical test of Minnesota is going to be real, but I do think Nebraska is going to be ready to play. So I think it'll be a good game, and Nebraska will have a chance to win. Okay, that is your 3 keys for Nebraska and Minnesota. We'll be back next week to preview the Huskers and the Buffs.